This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Thanks for joining us here on the Retirement Solution with financial advisor John Hicks. And if you have questions for John about your retirement savings plan, or perhaps, I don't know, sometimes I find myself saying, I don't even know what questions I'm supposed to have. Does that happen very often? Do people come in and go like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be asking you?
I would say one of the most poignant questions that's asked to me all the time is, hey, what am I supposed to ask you?
Yeah.
Like, what do I not know that I don't know that I need to ask you? I'm like, hey, that's a great question.
That's a very
There's a ton
real
of
thing.
them.
Yeah.
I was like, where do you want to start?
Okay.
Do you want to retire soon? Do you want to retire later? You know, what do you want to do? Do you want to have more take home money to spend?
Yeah.
Tell me where you want to start, and
Okay.
then we'll figure out what questions you need to ask.
Where to start? Well, you can at least start by going to the website. RetirementSolutionShow.com is where to start the conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. We also have links posted in the show notes, or again, it's RetirementSolutionShow.com. I want to ask you about a conversation we were having previous where you were talking about, I believe it was a doctor. He'd saved $11 million for retirement.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Brilliant man. But when it came to understanding finances and financial planning and all these things, he was just perplexed, to say the least. Furthermore, intimidated by it all to the point where he was just like, I don't know what to do, so I just keep working. That statement that you said to me rung in my ears. That is exactly what I want to ask you about in this conversation, John, because you've seen it, you witnessed it. We hear about people that just intend to delay their retirement and work past the age of 70 for many different reasons. To you, we say good luck, because this study by Transamerica found that while the average over 50 worker expects to retire at age 67, the average American actually ends up retiring at age 62, 5 years earlier than that expected age of 67. So let's talk about preparing ourselves for the unexpected, one, and two, empowering ourselves through knowledge and education with the planning process and the approach that you have at J. Hagan Capital.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I found the study to actually be pretty interesting too. So they basically said people expect that they're going to work longer.
Yeah.
But when they actually get down that road and they actually get closer to retirement, they're like, man, it would really be nice to have to get up every single morning at 6 o'clock, especially now we're entering the fall, which I love this time of year.
But it's so dark in the morning. You want to just stay in there all cozy.
That's exactly it. It's still dark outside. You're like, man, do I really want to get up at 6 when it's still dark? And then, of course, at some point down the road, by the time we start driving home at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or whatever, it's dark then too.
Yeah.
You feel like you just missed the whole world. So that happens to a lot of us, right? But I have also had people that say, you know, John, I'm going to keep working. And my question is never why. It's I understand, right? And so this is one of those things that we all have to kind of look through. So retirement is not really just a date that you stop working.
Okay.
Basically, when we retire, what we're saying is I'm going to commit my time now to something else.
Okay.
And if you don't have that something else, it feels very unfulfilling. That's really what it boils down to, right?
Okay.
It's not what you retire from, that job that makes you get up at 6 o'clock every year or every day for, year round. It's what are we retiring to, right? Can we actually go do the travel that we'd like to do? Have we saved well enough to do that? Well, we want to know. I mean, just because we get a big old pile of money does not mean it will last for the course of retirement. If we want to spend lavishly and do some fun travel, does that mean you can't do it? Not at all. But you just want to know, what can you do? Maybe you can't do $25,000 every year on a Viking Mediterranean cruise. But maybe you could spend $18,000 every other year or every third year. So you can do small amounts where you just take the family down, you go to Branson, Missouri, you go down to Florida for a few long weekends, but then you have the big splurge every few years, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that we can attain if we understand the planning process. And guys, I know plan is a 4-letter word, but that doesn't make it a dirty word. It actually is very freeing to do correctly, right?
Okay.
So we have to understand. So what are we retiring from? What are we retiring to? Because the biggest thing that I find, especially with guys, right? So I talk to guys. I don't know. I'm not going to say probably 52% of the time. Ladies about 48. It just goes that way. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But guys just slightly more than ladies. And guys have a tough time. We have a tough time disassociating our personal us, like what makes us us, we have a hard time separating that from our job
Sure.
or our career
Yeah.
or that thing we did for 25 or 30 or 40 years. I don't know what it is, but we put a lot of our stake of ourselves and how we perceive ourselves and how we feel like we're seen in that job. And so for those of us that have not done a great job figuring out what we want to do next, that becomes really weird.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do, which means that we're often in the house in the way of our spouse, who doesn't often like that sometimes, at least not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you start hearing those comments like, Zeke, I need you to get out of the kitchen. I have cooked this meal for 42 years. I sure as heck don't need you telling me what to put in the sauce today.
Somebody needs
right?
a hobby.
I'm telling you, that's exactly it. That's exactly. So I think over the past 10 years, I've helped more clients invest in pole barns and garages and think sheds that they can do their stuff in than ever before in my life. As a matter of fact, there are probably more sheds in southern Indiana and Kentucky and pole barns.
Thanks to John Hicks.
Thanks to Jay Hagan Capital. No joke. So because it's true, right? So guys, we need a place to get out of the way of those other people in their lives because their life may not be changing as much as yours. Number two, we have to find a purpose, right? And I'm not saying we need to go and jump head deep into doing mission work and traveling, if you're a physician, to Doctors Without Borders or things like that, although those are great things. And my clients that do those things, they truly are adding a tremendous service to the world.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Yeah.
But if you're not into that yet, you're going to have to find out what you want to do for 40 to 50 hours a week. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you're out there listening and say, yeah, I hear you blathering, boy, but it doesn't work. Every once in a while, I bet you've been on a vacation. And you've been there, let's say it's slightly longer than 7 days. Maybe you're there for 9 or 10 days. There is a point in that vacation, me included, where there's a day where all of a sudden a switch just turns off. And it is not any longer as fun as it was the first 2 or 3, 4 days, right? And all of a sudden it's like, this is fun and all, but I'm spending a lot more money to eat fried fish or whatever food this is. And it's good, I love it. But I could go back and do my thing or get back to that whatever you had going on. Happens to all of us. And so the thing we have to understand is what can we do for 40 to 60 hours a week, because that's what we're kind of replacing. Some people have not figured that out yet, which is why they just procrastinate. I'm just going to retire next year. I'm going to retire the year after that. I'm going to retire the year after that. And all we're doing is putting off the inevitable just because we don't want to go through that uncomfortable conversation with ourselves and our family of what exactly it is we're going to do. Because we don't know. And we don't like saying, well, I don't know. And the biggest reason that people don't yet know what sometimes they want to do, they don't know what they can do. They don't know what having $850,000 saved in those accounts, what that can look like. How much income could they have? What could they spend on? A lot of people, Heather, and we're seeing this more than ever. They're so fearful that they may run out. They don't spend any money, or they spend very little, or they don't spend nearly what they could, only then to get into their 80s and realize, wow, I should have done some stuff.
They have too much money left over.
That's literally it. And some people say, well, there's no such thing as having too much money left over. That's going to go to my kids. Until the government is involved and they take a good portion of that. You could have done much better jobs with your money.
Your kids are fine. You worked really hard. Enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Sure. And so a lot of these things is they just haven't spoken to someone who actually has seen 7,000 different retirements, or however many it is, and they know what that money can do. That's what it boils down to, right? And so for me, if you're out there and you're like, well, I'm already retired. This is my retirement. I'm like, I'm glad you've seen yours and maybe a couple of your neighbors. I've seen thousands, and some of them look very different, even though you may have the exact same amount of money. And that's the question, right? So what do we want that money to do? How can we leverage it correctly for the time we want to spend? One of the biggest concepts that I've introduced people to for the last 15 years is the idea of front-loading retirement, where we purposefully know we are going to take more money for the first 5 to 7 years that we retire. Why? Because that's when we're the youngest and the healthiest that we're ever going to be, and I want you to enjoy it. I want you to go to Italy. I want you to taste what real spaghetti tastes like. It does not taste like American spaghetti. Some people like it better. Some people don't. The majority of things they eat in the southern part of Italy is actually seafood. More seafood than anything else. They don't have all the rich sauces because the tomatoes are all in the northern area. I would love for everyone to see that and to know. The northern part of Italy is where they have all the cheeses because they have all the cows and everything else. It is a very different world than what many people are aware of. If you haven't seen it, I'd love for you to do it. It costs money. Does it mean you can't afford it? Absolutely not. But you got to know, can you do that in the first year of retirement? Can you do it in the third? Is it something you plan for? And maybe you don't want to go and travel, be by yourself. Maybe that's when you do the Viking River cruise, where you get to see 8 or 9 or 10 gorgeous little riverside cities and towns in Europe, and you get it all knocked out on one. Regardless of that, guys, you have to know, what do you want to dream for? A lot of us as Americans, over the years, some dreams were big when we were younger, and as years go on, dreams aren't quite as big. I want us to start thinking bigger again, right? I want to make retirement great again, but that means we have to start thinking bigger about some of these issues. Sometimes we just don't make the decision because we don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
Talk to someone skilled that actually does this for a living. Find out what you can afford and find out if that would be better than what you're currently thinking about. And if it is, maybe you make some changes that will benefit not only your life, but every one of those lives around you.
If you are seeking this kind of insight from a skilled fiduciary, you've got one right here. John and his team at J. Hagan Capital have been helping folks across Louisville for decades. They can help you as well. So let's get to work on this conversation, figuring out your plan, helping you decide what you are retiring to, what your money can do for you in this time span, making sure that you are spending it well and spending as much as you can in effort to help you live that life that you dream about. This is what we are here to help you with. So retirementsolutionshow.com is where to go to get started on this conversation with John and his team at J. Hagan Capital. You can also click on the links we got posted in the show notes, or again, it's retirementsolutionshow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.